So Google has just released Gemini 3 and it's going to be an absolute game changer for AI builders. One of the biggest features is in this build section of Google's AI Studio. And what people are doing is that they're just describing a simple prompt and they're generating these crazy ideas. Now when we go to the gallery, we can see that people are creating landing pages, games, and even graphics art. And if we just take a look at one of these landing pages, for example, the level of visuals and user interface is absolutely mind-blowing. And we can see that with Gemini 3, the opportunities are really just endless. So Gemini 3 was released on November 18th, so 2 days from when you're watching this video right now. So it's known at the moment as a preview version and is available through the Google AI Studio, as we just saw, as well as Google developer pages. So if we head over to the Gemini developer guide, and you can see on the side here that it says Gemini 3. It also says preview here, so it's probably not a full release as yet. But it'll have all the information about Gemini 3 as well as the API features here on the side. In terms of comparison of older models such as 2.5 Pro, 2.5 Flash, and 2.5 Flash Lite, their in and out context windows are basically the same. So what that means is that for every 1 million tokens inputted, they'll output 64K to 65K. In terms of pricing, however, there is a slight difference. So in terms of both 2.5 Flash Lite and 2.5 Flash, they're both relatively cheap models. So for Flash Lite, $0.10 to $0.40 we're looking at, and for 2.5 Flash we're looking around $0.30 to 2.50 out. Now when we're looking at 2.5 Pro and especially 3 Pro, they're slightly more expensive in terms of pricing. Now when looking at Gemini 3 Pro in particular, although this is under 200K as a cap, for every $2 you're putting in, you're receiving a $12 output. When you're exceeding that price, it bumps up slightly to around $4 in with an $18 output. This model is more expensive than the others, but as stated by Google, this is their most advanced and top reasoning model, which is also true multimodal. So back on the release blog now for Gemini 3, and we're just looking at a few benchmarks now. We can see that in terms of these benchmark categories, Gemini 3 Pro seems to be leading in all of these in terms of percentage. In particular, when looking at a feature like the ScreenSpot Pro, for example, which is the model's ability to analyze and understand an image, we're looking at a percentage of 72.7% compared to ChatGPT and Claude Sonnet, which are both 3.5 and 36.2. But that's enough talking about the statistics. Now I want to show you guys how you can use Gemini 3 inside NAN. So if you guys have never connected Gemini inside of NAN, I'm going to show you a few different ways you can do this. Now the first way I'm going to show you is by using the Gemini node inside of NAN, and in particular the messenger model node. And if you guys haven't already connected your credentials or you're struggling to, I'm going to show you guys a quick run on how to do that. And you just want to head over to the Google AI Studio, and once you're logged in, you just want to go down here to get API key. And then yeah, you just want to click here, create API key, and then you'll get your API key there. Once your credentials are set up, you just want to go to the model here, and you see a drop down. You can just search up 3 Pro, and then yeah, you get the option here for Gemini 3 Pro preview. Now there is another way to do this by first off adding an AI agent, and once you've added your agent, you get the option here to add a chat model. You just want to hit plus, and then you can just search Gemini, and then yes, here you can go to model and then search 3 Pro, and yeah, you can select 3 Pro there. What's cool about this is that because we're still using Gemini, you don't have to create a new credential. As I just showed you guys a second ago how to set up your credential, it'll already be connected here and you won't have to redo it. However, we can also add another chat model called OpenRouter. And what OpenRouter is that it's a model that has access to all language models. So I'll show you in a second what it looks like. So if we head over to OpenRouter's website here, and we just go to the top right, once we're logged in, you can see keys here, and you're able to create API keys here, similarly as Gemini. Also, if we just head over to the top here and we go to models, we can see that we have access to all these models here, including Gemini 3 Pro. And this is incredibly useful because what this means is that once you've created one credential with OpenRouter, we can use all these different models, whereas if we're using these individual models inside of NAN, we'd have to go to those websites and then create API keys for each individual model. And yeah, once you've connected your credentials, you can select model here again and search 3 Pro, and yeah, you see the option here to select Gemini 3 Pro preview. Now what we're doing in this process is actually using Gemini over API, because what we're doing is we're connecting to Gemini inside of NAN. And because we're using it through API, that means that we can tweak a few settings. So I'll show you guys what that looks like. So if we head back over to the Gemini developers page and we scroll down a bit, we can see that we have access to some new features in the API. A couple of those include thinking level, media resolution, temperature, and yeah, so on. Now, the reason why this is worth mentioning is because if you wanted to change the way that the model behaves, you'd have to change settings like these, for example. So let's just look at thinking level. So it says the thinking level parameter controls the maximum depth of the model's internal reasoning process before it produces a response. Gemini 3 treats these levels as a relative allowances for thinking rather than strict token guarantees. If thinking level is not specified, Gemini 3 Pro will be set to high. So what this actually means is that depending on the level selected, you'll get a different output response. So as default, it's set to high, meaning that you'll get quite a detailed response. Whereas there's also an option for low, which will be less cost, and you won't receive as detailed of a response. However, if we were just to head back into NAN now, and let's just say we wanted to change the thinking level, we just open up the model here, and then you'd go down here to the options, and you get a drop down, but we can't see a thinking level here at the moment. So as this isn't a feature yet inside of NAN, and it will be added in the future updates, what this means is that we will have to set up our own HTTP request so we can access the API directly from the developer site. So back on the developer site now, and if we just scroll up, we can see here that we have access to the high thinking and low thinking code. And if we just select low thinking, for example, and we scroll back up, yeah, we can see here we have our curl. And we can copy this directly back into NAN once we set up our HTTP request. So once we're back inside, I'm just going to add a step, which will be a HTTP request. And then I'm going to import my curl here. So the curl's been imported, and you can see the fields have been filled in now. It's been set to a post request. URL has been copied over from the curl. And if you just scroll down, obviously you need to generate your API key from your Gemini account and put it in there. And if we just scroll down here to the prompt, just change it to expression, we can see that there is a prompt here, which would be in between the quotation marks. This is where you'd write what question you want from the AI. And then you can see here, this is how we know that the thinking level has been changed. So I also wanted to quickly just demonstrate the differences in output between two models, and to compare with Gemini 3 Pro, I've chosen ChatGPT 4.0. So I created this mini workflow, and what it does is it starts with uploading an image, and then it separates the nodes between ChatGPT and Gemini, which I've set up through an open router model using Gemini 3. And what these two nodes are doing is that they are taking the image which I've uploaded, they're analyzing the image, and then they're creating a summary based off of it. So if we just go into the OpenAI node and we check the prompt, I've written describe the process in this image. And if we go down to Gemini, we have the exact same prompt. The reason why I chose this test was because if you guys remember earlier when we were looking at the benchmarks in the Google Gemini release for Gemini 3, Google were claiming that one of Gemini's best skills was through the ScreenSpot Pro benchmark, and what that was Gemini 3's ability to be able to analyze and understand images. So we're going to give this workflow a test and see the results. So let's hit execute workflow. I'm going to choose the file. Okay, so now we've received two results, one from OpenAI and one from Gemini. And I'm also going to put the image that I uploaded on the side so you guys can see the image that it's describing. So let's check OpenAI first. So first we're going to take a look at OpenAI's response, and the model has said the image shows a white car with significant damage to its side, indicating that it was likely involved in a collision or scraping incident. The damage includes scratches and scuffs. These are visible along the rear door and near the wheel arch. Dents, the body panel above the rear wheel is dented, likely from impact from another object or vehicle. Misaligned door panel, the door appears to be slightly out of alignment or buckled due to the impact. This suggests the process of a side impact collision or scraping incident, such as the car being sideswiped by another vehicle or scraping against a pole, wall, or another stationary object. The car looks like it's parked on the street, which may imply the damage occurred whilst it was parked or during a low-speed urban driving. Repair would likely involve dent removal, panel realignment, repainting, and possibly replacement of damaged parts. So OpenAI seems to understand the image. So now we're going to look at Gemini 3 to see if there's any differences. So Gemini seems to be in a lot more detail already, so I'm not going to read all of it, but I'm going to read some of it so you can understand the differences. Based on the visual evidence, the image depicts the aftermath of a vehicular, sideswipe, or scraping incident. Whilst the image is static, it captures the result of a specific mechanical process collision damage and implies a future process of repair. Here's a breakdown of what is shown. The damage, the event process. The primary process shown here is the result of a car scraping laterally against another object. So that's just a small section of it, but the amount of detail in this response really shows the differences between Gemini 3's capabilities compared to something like OpenAI. These kind of summaries could be very useful for car companies, for example, if they need to find out about damages and costs, because you get a clear breakdown of the exact repairs needed and what caused the damages. So I hope you guys get an understanding of how you can integrate Gemini 3 into your workflows and different ways that you can use it. But at the moment, it's still in the early stages of development, so hopefully in future releases we can see some new ways that we can use it. And yeah, if you guys want to see more workflows like this, I'm going to be leaving a link to my free school community in the description below, which you guys can join if you want. And also, please do let me know in the comment section below what kind of workflows you want to see next. So that's all for today's video, guys, and thanks for watching.